May I come in, sir?
Come, please come. Shantanu,
Yes.
please
Good
come,
afternoon,
take a
good
seat.
afternoon.
So Shantanu, tell us briefly about yourself, your academic qualification, your work experience if you have worked somewhere after your graduation, and your main hobbies.
So my full name is Shantanu Sunil Marani. I am from Maharashtra. I have did my BChem in chemical engineering. I don't have any work experience. For last 3.5 years, I am preparing for UPSC CSE.
So Shantanu, you hail from Maharashtra, right?
Yes, sir.
So we had a stalwart in our country who was born today on 14th April.
I'm not aware, sir. Sorry.
You've heard of Mr. Ambedkar.
Yes.
So today is his birth anniversary. You're not aware of that?
No, sir.
Oh,
I shouldn't have missed that.
all right. But you know him.
Definitely, sir.
Okay. So tell me, what other than the Constitution, which we all know, what have been his other contributions to the country, especially in the social sector for the society?
So his speeches and books on abolition of caste and on such subjects which call for equality among brothers and sisters of the society. That I think is one of the biggest contribution of Mr. Ambedkar.
Mhm.
And sir, he was also one of the chairman or a member of the committee who recommended that a Reserve Bank of India should be established.
Okay. Or was it about the Finance Commission that he set up? Finance Commission of India.
I'm not aware of that.
Okay. So tell me, during this 2+2 Indo-US dialogue, two issues, were of prime importance, and India has used it as a diplomatic tool. One is food grains, and the other is vaccine. How food grain and vaccine diplomacy is going to help India to re-establish its importance, after a little bit of, annoyance of the Western countries and the US in particular. Can you elaborate on this?
Yes. So as we all know, current Russia and Ukraine crisis is going on, and both have like 25% of the wheat supplies from those countries. So that has been hampered, and many countries, especially in Africa, such as Egypt, are facing problems regarding wheat. So this is where India can shine, because India has procured wheat in the past, and the current reserves are more than double of our strategic reserves need. So that can be exported to such countries. And so regarding vaccine diplomacy, there is a saying that in every crisis there is opportunity. So during this pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic, India did supply its vaccines to more than 100 countries and has established itself as a leader in pharmaceuticals.
So on food grain front, I want to elaborate on this. I think you were very brief in this. Prime Minister of India made a statement that India can feed the world if World Trade Organization allows. So what message you think the Prime Minister is conveying to the world?
Regarding the prowess of India, the power it has and the agricultural output it has, regarding that sense, and India is not only just a balancing power, but it can also lead in many domains such as food security for other countries. That is the message I think which Honorable Prime Minister wants to send to the world.
Tell me, corporate governance, there have been some reforms lately. So can you list out some of the reforms which have been made by way of Companies Act, and again something more is being added. It was in the news 1 or 2 days ago. But you don't recall the news if you haven't read. But what reforms have been made in governing the corporate sector?
So one would be the tax cut rate which was given in the last budget. That was one reform which regarding corporates was there. And so I can't think of
You
more.
can't recall? All right. So let me ask you about your subject, chemical engineering. So tell me, Hyderabad is emerging as a hub for pharmacy, and India is already world's pharmacy. So why Hyderabad has emerged as a place where pharmacy has been so successful? And any idea? Any
No, sir.
No
Maybe
idea?
because there are few big companies there. Maybe that's why, but I don't know the exact reason.
All right. Mr. Suvesh?
Good evening, Shantanu. Can you evaluate India's vision of new world order?
So India's vision for New World Order is based on multipolarity and is based on multilateralism. India strongly believes that world is of one family and where conflicts and issues are bound to emerge, but there is a way of diplomacy to resolve that. So when the world is getting divided into different poles, India emerges and thinks of it as a good leading and balancing power and wants diplomacy as a way to navigate these complex issues such as climate change and terrorism.
Can you tell about the impact of Ukraine-Russia war on BRICS?
So Russia and Ukraine war, I believe, will push Russia towards China, and but the stance of India is also which has been appreciated by Russia. So in that case, I feel BRICS can be loop-sided towards Russia and China, and it can hamper a little bit of the relation which India and Russia has, where Russia would advocate its neutrality. So in that case, I think there can be negative connotations for India in BRICS and for BRICS in general.
Okay. Can you briefly do SWOT analysis of Indian economy?
The current strengths, I believe, would be, as the rightly mentioned, we are becoming pharmacy of the world. There have been exports, and we have recently seen there was a rise of 25% in exports, touching more than $400 billion. That is one domain where I feel we are showing our prowess. The other side would be, in terms of weakness, the current inflation rate is about going up 7%. It's touching almost 7%. So that is hampering, and the imports are getting expensive. For example, for oil due to Russia and Ukraine crisis, and we are heavily dependent on that for crude oil, I mean, and so that would be it, I guess.
Okay. I would like to know your view on legalization of cryptocurrency in India.
The cryptocurrency as today stands in a gray area, though it has been taxed, but the issues regarding cryptocurrency such as the anonymity it contains, and it is outside the purview of the sovereign India. So legalizing it would harm the strategic interest of India, I feel. So in that case, not legalizing it would be the way forward, I think.
What's your take on CUET, Common University Entrance Test? Can you highlight merits and demerits of CUET?
Sir, I haven't read much about it.
Okay. So have you heard recently, as per new national education policy, now a student can have 2 degrees simultaneously? Okay. So what impact will it have on students?
So one good impact it would have, it will promote multidisciplinary education. For example, if I take my example, I did my graduation in chemical engineering and now I am pursuing my master's in political science. So it's very genuine for a candidate to have interest in 2 diverse fields, and this is a very good initiative taken so that we can have diverse viewpoints and knowledge for a candidate.
And lastly, tell me, Shantanu, why you are so keen to join civil services?
So civil services as a profession gives a lot of opportunities for a person to develop himself, to develop his society around him and nation as well. Also, sir, it ticks many boxes such as having a good secured life, and it gives avenues to work with competent people who are with you and they are with you with the same aim. So you get a good team around you to bring about a change. So that's why I'm very keen to join civil services.
Thank you.
Sir Shantanu, in which macroeconomic criteria Maharashtra ranks number 1 in the country?
So GDP of the state.
GDP, yes. It is the highest in the country, of course. So can we say that Maharashtra has been successful in fighting poverty with that kind of SGDP? Can we say that Maharashtra has been able to fight effectively the problem of poverty?
So though I think it has definitely helped to reduce poverty, but I think the major issue would be the regional balances are not attuned to what one would aim for. For example, the crisis which we face in Vidarbha, there the poverty is way above than what is in Western Maharashtra. So in that sense, I feel we are lacking behind and a balanced development would be needed.
Okay. A few days back, our Minister for Roads and Transport, he made a statement that now cars will run on water in India. What does that mean? Cars will run on water in India. On means you take on means using water.
Yes.
Not on means
Yes.
okay.
I think he was talking about hydrogen energy.
Yeah, hydrogen. Yes, that's right. So why it is called green hydrogen? Why the emphasis on green hydrogen? What is that?
So green hydrogen, the green here emphasizes that it doesn't have a negative externality and the overall process doesn't leads to evolution of emissions as a whole. So that's why it's called green hydrogen.
Okay. Now, in the last COP26 at Glasgow, Government of India's stand was that we will become zero carbon emission status in 2070.
Yes.
So, but for that, studies have revealed that it will require funds to the tune of $8 trillion US. So, how do you think we would be able to manage so much of money? What are the possible sources if we have to live up to that commitment?
For being carbon neutral by 2017, we will have to, I think, have phases, planned phases, and the $8 trillion can be phased in such a manner that in the initial stage, as our economy is booming, but we have we have resources to be developed in other areas too. So here the global commitment by developed countries, which was given in Paris, which is yet to be fulfilled, such as giving $100 billion to the developed countries and such other mechanisms, those can be availed, and India can use its diplomacy in such areas where it can have from other bankers and from
Is
World
Government of India doing something on green bonds? Have you heard of this term, green bond?
green bonds.
Green bonds.
Green bonds.
Green bonds.
I believe government has a plan to launch sovereign green bonds and to similarly have funds raised from that.
Okay. Now, can you tell me about 2-3 successful initiatives taken by International Solar Alliance in the recent months?
Sir, I'm not.
Okay, no problem. Have you heard of this term, public diplomacy? What is this?
So public diplomacy is where the government institutions engages with public and has its participation in the diplomacy. For example, tractor diplomacy and tractor diplomacy. In such case, there is involvement of the public at home and the diaspora at the other area.
you have heard of the term judicial activism and judicial overreach.
Yes.
I mean, can you give example of one of each? What is the difference?
Yes.
Yeah.
Judicial activism and judicial overreach, though it depends on perspective to perspective, there is no hard and fast definition. But I guess if you would ask for me example, judicial activism is when judiciary is actively taking a part in the process of governance, which would typically fall in the hands of executive. For example, if we say the case of PIL and midday meal scheme, so their government, judiciary did take initiative on it. That, according to me, would be judicial activism. And many scholars feel that the basic structure doctrine which was given was case of judiciary overreach, because it was curtailing the power of elected representatives to amend the constitution as the way it was imagined.
Can you give one example of this judicial overreach?
Yes, sir. As I said, basic structure doctrine would, if many believe that it is example of judicial overreach.
Okay, yes. Okay. Thank you.
It was so nice interacting with you, Shantanu. I would like to understand from you, what do you understand by police reforms?
The police reforms would entail increasing the efficiency of the institution of police, and also enabling police to perform better. For example, it can be filling up the vacancies, giving soft skills as many committees have suggested, and increasing awareness, having gender equality in police. Such reforms can be termed as police reforms.
Have you heard of the Prakash Singh case, Prakash Singh versus Union of India, in which the Supreme Court has given certain guidelines?
Yes.
My purpose of asking was that particular case. Have you any idea of that particular case and the Supreme Court guidelines?
Sir, if I'm able to recall correctly, in 2006, Supreme Court gave guidelines for appointing of head of police in a state, where the guidelines such as the officer to be appointed should have a minimum of 2 years of service left, and there should be a say of, if I'm able to recall correctly, UPSC in that. Similar, I'm not able to recall exact word.
Okay, then we come to the next topic. Maybe you would be able to tell me your background of international relations. America of late, these are troubled times. America has observed that they're very concerned about the human rights violations happening in India. How do you think should, of course, India's foreign minister has reacted, but what is your take on this? America telling India its concern about human rights violation in India.
So whenever a country is suggesting regarding the domestic issues, though we should have our eyes and ears open and we should pay heed to their suggestions, but we should have our own independent assessment of that. So in that case, we should look at those allegations or violations, and we should see if that is the case and take reforms if necessary.
Antanu, do you think that India's human rights record is second to that of the US? You must have heard of the My Lai massacres, you would have heard of the Black Lives Matter, you must have heard of Martin Luther King. Do they even have the moral ground even to tell us what human rights are? I wanted your observation on this.
But still I would feel that as a democratic country, we should not engage in diatribe or calling out names, but we should have our own assessment of that in our country.
We will talk about now the next question. Again, the US chooses to tell India not to buy oil from Russia. Your reaction?
So every country wants to secure its national interest and strategic objectives. As the oil prices has been rising, Russia has we have opened up the avenue with Russia to buy oils at a cheaper rate. So I think it suits in our national interests. So we should do that. And as Honorable EAM Jaishankar rightly said, that our procurement is like minuscule compared to what Europe is procuring. So each country should look after its national interests.
Very true. Now coming to human rights. Of course, within the country we realize that there are human rights violations. If I were to ask you, if we were to identify which is the area which is most accused or vulnerable, sensitive in respect of human rights violation? Police, armed forces, jails, or elsewhere?
So I feel much in news is about armed forces and the ASPA Act that is recently in news and has been cited for human rights violations time and again.
Any other allegations against the police about human rights violations? You must have heard of the use of bulldozers in Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh.
No, sir.
You've not heard the use of bulldozers?
No, sir.
Never mind. Then we come to another aspect of policing, that is encounters. Have you heard of the word encounter, or you've not heard of the
Yes, sir.
encounters?
Encounter, yes, sir.
What are encounters? Are they legitimate or illegitimate?
So encounter, so it would depend on situation to situation.
There will
but-
be a legitimate encounter and an illegitimate encounter.
So when the person is harming the police and in self-defense the police tries to neutralize the subject even though he or she has yet to be proven guilty, that would be, in my opinion, a legitimate encounter. But when there is no such case and the law hasn't proven him or her guilty and still police is taking action on their behalf, and that would I think will against the law, and that would be illegitimate encounter.
Okay, now my last question to you. There's so much talk of the misuse of loudspeaker and public address systems. I would like to understand from you, what are the rules governing the use of loudspeakers, DJs, and other things?
So as per different zones, we have decibel levels ranging from 60 to 90 to 100. So if those are followed, I don't think we have a problem. But those should be enforced by law, and those differs from area to area. For example, my college area was a silent zone, and there were hospitals nearby. So if some loudspeaker is as loud as more than 60 decibels, and that won't be permissible by law. So that should be followed, I guess.
That is the sound intensity.
Yes.
There's also rules and regulations prescribed by the Supreme Court in respect of the timings also. Whether it may be any decibel, but there are certain times which the Supreme Court said that loudspeakers and public address systems cannot be used. Are you aware of those timings?
No, sir.
Nantanu?
Okay. Well, have you heard the name of Akar Patel?
Yes, sir. Recently, he was in.
Yes, recently. Why? Who is he? Why did you come across this name?
I think he was stopped from traveling abroad by CBI.
Why?
So I have not.
Who is he?
He's head of some environmental organization.
Okay, yeah, I'll not say you, but make a point to read about it, okay? Now, among the hobbies you have written that you love to read autobiographies. Which autobiography did you read most recently?
So A Life in Diplomacy.
By?
Maharaja Krishnan Rasagotra, ex-foreign secretary.
But what made you to choose this to read?
So when I was submitting my DAF, there was a question of what should be my first preference regarding the services. So I was inclined toward IFS. So I thought it would be a good decision to read some autobiography and know about the life of IFS. So that is the reason I read.
You liked it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What other autobiographies have you read so far? Name 3 autobiographies.
So I read Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, founder of Nike. I read Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. He was a Navy SEAL who loved running. And I also read Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg.
So, most of the autobiographies you have read are non-Indian, except one, for the IFS thing. Okay. Any autobiography have you read of an Indian?
So My Experiments with Truth by Mahatma Gandhi and my autobiography by APJ Abdul Kalam, sir.
By?
APJ Abdul Kalam.
You stand inspired by them
Definitely, yes, sir.
and you read them, you have read them in English versions?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'll ask you something about Another hobby of yours, that is marathon. When did you last run a marathon?
In strict sense of the word, 42 kilometers, I'm yet to run a marathon, full 42 kilometers, but
Okay.
I ran 10 kilometers last 27th March.
27 March. That is the latest. How? What was your timing?
So my timing was 1 hour 45 minutes.
You did fairly well. Now I'll ask you about international relations. Who is the new Prime Minister of Pakistan?
Shehbaz Sharif.
Who is he? Other than the Prime Minister, what is his background very briefly?
So he is, I think, a cousin of the previous president, Nawaz Sharif.
President. How old would he be?
Sorry, sir?
How old would Shehbaz Sharif be?
78.
Sorry?
78, I think.
Okay, you need to read about them. I know, but I would like you to read.
Yes,
eh?
I will.
His correct age, what was he? Because he's the most talked about by the time you appear for the interview. Anyway, the last question is on international relations. Whom do you think India's closest friend is today? Either in the neighborhood or otherwise. Which country?
I would say United States of America would be the closest.
Closer than Russia?
I believe, yes, sir.
Closer than Bangladesh?
So we have good relations with Bangladesh and Bhutan as well, but in terms of strategic imperatives, I think United States of America would be
And
one.
you think America also finds India as the closest friend?
No, sir, I guess.
Thank you very much.
So, Shantanu, we have asked quite a few questions from our side. The last question we would like to ask from some topic which you will tell, of your choice.
Maybe from chess.
From chess, all right. So, the strategies for war and chess, there is some commonness between the two, right? So, if you also have a warlike situation in your district, especially with regard to law and order, how would your learning of chess will help you to maybe take care of the communal elements, or those who are sabotaging and antisocial elements? Just give an idea.
So one principle of chess that comes to my mind is second order thinking, where we not only think of the next move, but also what will entail after the next move. So whenever we are dealing with sensitive issues, the action can have many such reactions by the public. So thinking about those and second order thinking, I think that is what chess can teach me. And just not only looking at the short term, but also the long term consequences of my action.
So, thank you, Shantanu.